Sexual Harassment Prevention, provided by the Lexington Group Incorporated, providing employee assistance and organizational development services nationwide. What is sexual harassment? It is the unwelcome sexual conduct which affects the terms and conditions of a person's employment or creates a hostile environment. Criteria of sexual harassment. The criteria of sexual harassment is considered to be unwanted conduct of a sexual nature that is severe or pervasive, which affects a person's ability to work. Sexual harassment can include, but is not limited to, sexual propositions or threats, lewd comments or jokes, sexual gestures, obscene noises, leering, unwanted use or display of pornographic material, and inappropriate or unwanted touching. Examples of harassing behavior that can create a hostile or abusive work environment are the display of pornographic pictures or cartoons, touching and grabbing, sexual remarks or jokes, and the physical interference with movement. Employers and individual harassers may be liable for damages in cases of harassment that creates an abusive work environment, in part because psychologists in the United States and in other countries have conducted research that demonstrates you can suffer psychological harm from harassment, whether or not it results in the loss of a job benefit. Quid pro quo, or this for that. Quid pro quo means something that is given in return for something else. Quid pro quo sexual harassment is usually perpetrated by a person in authority and is linked with the power to determine job benefits. Quid pro quo sexual harassment occurs when employment is based on an employee's submission or to rejection of unwelcome verbal or physical sexual conduct. Examples include requiring sexual favors in exchange for hiring, a promotion, or a raise, disciplining, demoting, or firing an employee because he or she ends a consensual relationship, changing work or academic assignments because an employee or student refuses invitations for a date or other private social meetings. Hostile environment. A person who creates a hostile working environment will be intimidating and aggressive. Their goal is to create an offensive working environment. Hostile environmental sexual harassment can be perpetrated by anyone in the workplace. Hostile work environment sexual harassment occurs when verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct is sexual and based on gender, unwelcome, and sufficiently severe and pervasive to interfere with a person's work, learning, program performance, or to create a hostile, intimidating, or offensive environment. A determination is made on a case-by-case basis, looking at the whole record, including the circumstances, such as the nature of the sexual advances and the context in which the alleged incidents occurred. Some behaviors which may be acceptable in certain contexts are inappropriate in the workplace or classroom, particularly if an objection is expressed. Types of sexual harassment. There are different types of sexual harassment: verbal, nonverbal, and physical. Verbal harassment includes sexual innuendos, suggestive comments, asking about sexual fantasies, making threats or rumors, repeatedly asking someone out, sexual propositions and jokes of a sexual nature. Nonverbal harassment includes sexually suggestive objects or pictures, staring, looking a person up and down, whistling, and sexually suggestive gestures. Physical harassment includes touching the body, hair, or clothing, stalking, intentionally brushing against someone, neck or back massage, and restraining someone. Where does sexual harassment occur? It can happen at work, after work, and at company events. Can sexual harassment that happens off the clock be reported? Yes. Reporting sexual harassment. Review your employee handbook. Employers generally set forth procedures for internally reporting incidents of sexual harassment in the employee handbook. These procedures generally establish an open-door policy, whereby employees can report the harassment to a supervisor or human resources manager. Review these procedures carefully. Determine who to report to. Often, employees feel embarrassed reporting sexual harassment or fear retaliation for reporting it. These are legitimate concerns, especially where the employer's policy requires reports to be made to the person committing the sexual harassment. Reports should always be made to a neutral person, somebody who is not involved in the harassment. The person should be in management, preferably a human resource manager or supervisor. Most importantly, the person needs to be somebody you can trust. Request a face-to-face meeting with the person to whom the complaint is made. If possible, meet face-to-face with the person to whom you choose to report the harassment. A face-to-face meeting will allow you to tell your story and allow the employer to ask follow-up questions. Oftentimes, by meeting face-to-face with the victim of sexual harassment, the employer can see how genuinely upset and distraught you are over what happened. This conveyance of emotions can be a powerful way to motivate the employer to investigate your complaint and take appropriate remedial action. Follow up in writing. After meeting face-to-face, or if a face-to-face meeting is not possible, always put your complaint in writing. Keep a copy for your records and request that another copy be placed in your personal file. Send your complaint via email to your employer, as documents can be lost, stolen, or destroyed, but emails can almost always be recovered, even if deleted. Tell your employer exactly what happened and exactly what you want. Do not make general allegations such as, "Mr. Manager harassed me." Instead, be specific. Tell the employer exactly what happened with as much detail as possible so the employer can adequately investigate and remedy the situation. If possible, include dates, witnesses, and documents that can support your story. You must be honest. Do not lie under any circumstances. Also, make sure you tell your employer what you want them to do about the harassment. Your employer does not have to remedy the situation the way you desire, but your input is always helpful. After the complaint is made, follow up with your employer and document the investigation. After you complain, your employer has an obligation to investigate and inform you of the results. How to handle a complaint. As a supervisor or human resources manager, make sure all information remains confidential when a complaint is made. Listen with an open mind. Take notes, ask questions, and try to get all the facts without passing judgment. Ask the complainant what they would like to see happen. Take a written document of the meeting and put it on file with the company. Always let the employee know that you will get back with them after the investigation. Advise them of the non-retaliation policy, which prohibits retaliation of any kind against any employee bringing a complaint or assisting in the investigation of a complaint. Such employees may not be adversely affected in any manner related to their employment. After a complaint is made, get all facts and document them. Make sure there is a proper investigation. Keep all parties appropriately informed about the progress of the investigation and document all actions taken. Liability of employer. Remember that your company can be held responsible for the actions of supervisors and employees. Employers, and not the employees themselves, will often be held liable for the conduct of their employees. This is true even if the employer had no intention to cause harm and played no physical role in the harm, because employers are seen as directing the behavior of their employees. Even if the harassment did not lead to a tangible employment action, the employer can still be held liable unless it proves that the employer exercised reasonable care to prevent and promptly correct any harassment, and the employee suffering the harassment unreasonably failed to complain to management or to avoid harm otherwise. Prevention. In order to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, make sure all employees attend sexual harassment trainings. Make a strict policy on sexual harassment in the workplace. Make the policy visible to all employees and have it signed by all employees. An employer that incorporates sexual harassment prevention training with initial employee orientation and has a procedure in place to report incidents of inappropriate behavior is less likely to have sexual harassment incidents. Designate a representative for employees to confide in with possible complaints. Be a visible supervisor and lead by example. Access to EAP. We can be reached at our toll-free number, 1-800-676-4357. We are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our service is confidential, service is voluntary. There is unlimited access, and we are available to family members.